Boy.
One of those nights, man. Welcome back, everyone, to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 158. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Lionel.
Hello, hello. How's everyone doing today? How you doing today, Mike?
I'm good, brother. Yourself?
I am well.
Good. Um, Tonight is science, and there is a docket in the description beneath the video. Please hit the like button as you come in and share if possible. And let me begin sharing my screen. All right, so this video is from, or first item on the docket is from DW. Let me make sure I pause that so it doesn't, we don't get flagged for this one. This video is about agriculture destroying the Baltic Sea, pea bogs, and they use these pea pods to for as a fertilizer base for growing plants. So it's actually an accelerator from seaweed, if I remember correctly. Lionel, did you get a chance to watch this to have an opinion? I know. All right. While Lionel's away, I'll read the description.
Oh, my bad. I forgot I muted.
Okay.
Um, I did not know. Obviously, I've seen Peat Moss at big box stores such as Home Depot and such, and you will see in the nursery that they have these little plants growing. And me personally, I didn't pay it no never mind and say, what's that? But I don't know. It was peat moss. Peat moss is harvested and used for a lot of things. Well, used for a lot of nurseries. And per this documentary, it's destroying these Baltic nations. I think it was like Latvia, and I think I forgot the name of the other nation, but they were saying that
Hmm.
it's native to those areas, and because of that, it is destroying the environment. This was an interesting documentary.
Yeah, it is interesting because I didn't realize how much it contributes to a lot of equal development. You don't really realize what these, everything around you is actually that's sustainable is actually an asset.
Mm.
And if you lose it, you're screwed. And if they lose these things, their country is screwed as well. Including the water. So it's destroying a lot of the environment because it can't grow.
Hmm. Yeah. They were saying how they drain like 96% of Germany's marshes.
Right,
Um, wow, that's a lot.
right,
That is
it,
a lot.
right. Especially you only have so much to go around. So I mean, I know there's other ways, like artificial ways of doing things, like with Monsanto and whatnot. But
Mm.
if you're trying to avoid genetically modified stuff, man, this is the only way to go about it. So
Yeah, but it's good that toward the end they were saying how they are a team of scientists came together and they're implementing ways to save it, and they've shown what they've done so far. And what they've done so far is good. That they're showing you what they've done already.
mhm,
Uh, the thickness of that marsh, the thickness of that peat moss that they've showed. Wow.
mhm.
Yeah, there was
I started, yeah,
go ahead.
I started looking up stuff on how you can actually harvest your own and stuff like that, and I realized you can't really do that in the hood. So,
No, it's like you got to have favorable a favorable environment conducive to grow that.
hmm
And it seemed like that environment, because of the cold dampness, seemed like the cold damp, because that stuff is what they. It's like I see a staple on movies like Harry Potter. You know, that the marsh, the peat moss, and all that whole look. And it seems like that's just a staple in that area. It's only in that area.
hmm it was interesting. If anybody wants to find out more information about it, you should actually watch the documentary. It's actually very interesting. It's boring, but it's interesting. You might learn a few things from it. So, all right, next one is from CNBC.com. Renewable energy giant Statkraft to test floating solar with new plant. All right, Norway Statkraft, one of Europe's largest producers of renewable energy, is pressing ahead with plans to build its first ever floating solar facility. Its Albanian unit has chosen a Norwegian company, Ocean Sun, to provide it with floating solar plant with a floating solar plant in a reservoir in the European country. Ocean Sun was set up in 2016 and specializes in floating solar technology. The solar park in Albania will be made up of four half megawatt half megawatt units. Statkraft said in an announcement Tuesday, investment in the project will amount to 2.3 million euros, $2.5 million USD. Quote, testing new technology for floating solar power panels fits very well with Statkraft's strategy to grow our renewable energy generation with hydro, wind, and solar. If the technology is proven successful and the potential for cost competitiveness can be achieved, a wider application of floating solar may take place in other Statkraft locations, he added. In October 2018, a report from the World Bank Group and the Solar Energy Research Institute of Singapore stated that the worldwide capacity of floating solar had increased from 10 megawatt at the end of 2014 to 1.1 gigawatts by 2018. The report went on to state capacity could potentially reach 400 gigawatts worldwide, although no time frame was provided. Statkraft said that its floating solar plant would be built during 2019 and 2020, subject to final regulatory approvals. A world leader in hydropower, Statkraft describes itself as Europe's largest generator of renewable energy. Owned by the Norwegian state, it employs 3,600 people across 15 countries. That's very interesting because hmm, if you put something like that on the water, I don't know how that affects the environment. Like, does it? Because you're losing value. Well,
That's a
uh,
good
uh,
question.
yeah. Like, if you cover up that water with solar panels, like, what does that do to the water?
Because you're blocking the sun from getting in.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And the ecosystem of the water is so complex. You know, the plankton feed off that sun,
hmm
fish feed off plankton, and it
Algae.
go, yeah, algae. And I would imagine that I mean, those solar panels need to move and not stay in one stationary, or if they stay in one stationary place, they can't stay in it can't be like a large field or a large area on top of the water, you know, because fish come up for water, well, come up for air too, you know, or certain fish, they come up for air too. So
I guess you would keep it like a buoy. I guess to be designed just like a buoy would be designed. If I'm saying it correctly, a buoy.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, but that's complicated because what happens when there's a bigger wave or so on and so forth? Now you're kind of having inconsistencies in your ability to absorb light, sun rays, because it's being shifted and tilted due to currents, low tides and high tides and things like that. It seems very complicated, but I guess they must have figured all this out. But I mean, there's so many ways now to have to get into renewable energy, man. I mean, you imagine a lot of that water, um, a lot of the surface water is probably not being used, but at the same time, um, it is fertile ground for solar panels. But I just wonder about the stability and the the longevity of a project like that.
Hmm.
Seagulls flying over it, shitting all over the panels and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I can't. Who's going to go out there and clean all that? 'Cause those panels have to be cleaned periodically in an environment like that. Because I
I mean,
know out here, and I've seen this on other um, solar grids before that. There's people out there that actually come out at night and clean them.
mhm. And they have a mechanism where they clean it where it's very fast. It's quick. The
Is
cleaning
it
process is quick.
automated or is it human based?
It's human based, but they attach this. I've seen it on one of them solar fields on YouTube where they attach this thing and it just sprays like a mist of water in front of it, and it just goes along the side front of it, and they just walk the distance. It's not real complicated or anything, or it takes away the tediousness of the wax on type of deal. But I agree with you. Cleaning this when it's in the ocean, and especially as a big area, yeah, they do need to be clean. And yeah, hmm, it's a good idea. Don't get me wrong, it's a good idea to have to say, well, it's the ocean. 70% of the world's surface is ocean area, so we may as well utilize it. And it's a great thought. It's a great idea. But then you also, like you said, need to clean it. What if it breaks? These rogue waves come out of nowhere, and so by saying that, I would think that they would cluster them in a certain area and have it move like a snake um, along the shoreline or something like that. Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, I just have to wait for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, because the thing about because I don't know if it's going to be freshwater or seawater, right? If it's going to be seawater, then you imagine that the salt would actually
Mm,
erode the panels. How long can the panels withstand salt corrosion? And
mm,
as well as like osmosis and stuff building up on it.
like barnacles and yeah.
Because
But
the submarine gets that stuff, and the submarine is massive and it moves at a fast pace. So you can't imagine something that's sitting still for all that time.
I would imagine the Great Lakes, and it's just a large body. Let's take Lake Michigan because it's so near to me.
Mm-hmm.
A large body of water, and you have these solar panels that, and this is just my thought. You have these solar panels, and you have them in like a long line, like a snake pattern,
Okay.
and you program it to go out in the water, collect energy, bring it back, or have it even attached to the land, where it's still moving in the ocean to prevent blocking the sun from getting in the water. Then you'll have some type of data on it that says, "Hey, okay, this section of the solar panels is not getting as much light. Okay, it must be because it's dirty. Come back and clean it or do something." I mean, there's ways around it, but I imagine we're just bringing up questions.
Right, and I'm pretty sure their scientists have already looked at all of this. The engineers looked at all of this stuff. But I think those are probable questions that we have that would be concerning, in those areas. Because I know a lot of countries and states and cities and stuff like that, people will have like not in my backyard sort of
Yeah.
sort of positions to take. But then at the same time, When you look at the benefits package or the benefits of it, and you're getting half a megawatt, a whole megawatt, gigawatts coming out of it. That kind of outweighs every other negative. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll move on to the next one. Nicole Ali, what's going on?
How you doing? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Nate?
All right now.
All right. This next one is from CleanTechnica.com. Australia adding 1 mega solar project per month. Australia is adding 1 mega solar project equivalent per month, with the current installed base of 10 megawatts projected to double by the end of 2020. The latest mega solar project is the 333 megawatt Darlington Point solar farm headed for Griffith, New South Wales, according to Array Technologies, which is providing the single access trackers for the project. Australia's solar industry virtually rocketed during 2018 when 1.5 gigawatts of solar came online, roughly 10 times as much solar came online in 2017, around 150 megawatts, according to Sunwise Solar Consultants. You can reasonably expect the 2019 will set another record volume for solar farms commissioned, the consultant projected in February. Most of the Australian solar growth in generation capacity is coming from the utility segment, although commercial, industrial, and residential installs also continue at record paces, according to the Australian PV Institute, APVI. Australia now has over 10.1 gigawatts of solar installed, capable of delivering 14.6 terawatts of hours of electricity per year and meeting more than 5.5% of Australia's energy demand, the organization reckons. That's a lot. That's a lot of power.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like that
Mhm.
documentary, it was saying that that company would burn some of the peat that's not suitable for plants. And the guy was saying, "Well, no, that's ridiculous because the only thing you're doing is just releasing CO2
Mhm.
in the atmosphere. It doesn't produce as much energy as regular fossil fuels or less. So you have this with the last article we just read with the solar panels in the sea,
Mhm.
and then you have this where they're setting up solar panels across the, I was about to say country, across the continent. Well, in certain sections of the continent. And then we talked about Power Ledger. So
Mhm.
there's ways out there right now with renewable energies to continue to power your nations at the same rate where fossil fuels is doing it, at least, and if not more, better. You are not better, but give you more power.
And keep in mind that we went over an article last week where California, is they're fighting this. Oh well, what about our deserts? It's so beautiful with all that dirt, that no one's looking at. We don't want to disturb all the beautifulness of the cactuses and the the desert foxes out there. And what about the salamanders and the lizards out there? Like, really? Like, that's a concern for you?
Right. They don't want to disturb all the nothingness.
Yeah, yeah. So you see countries outside of the United States are actually doing very well with solar, renewable energies, whereas in the United States, people are fighting you left to right over some nothingness, right? It's unbelievable the stuff that goes on here.
Uh, but solar power, article after article shows that more people are doing it, and then we've seen how the cost to set this up has been drastically reduced. And you don't have to stop at solar power. You can do other renewable ways of energy.
Hmm. Hmm. Cause and this is where black people can actually start firing up their own grids, right? When you and I have talked about this in the past, in terms of infrastructure development. If you have a considerable amount of real estate available and the wherewithal, and you have at least one blockchain developer, and you have a couple of electrical engineers, you have the right amount of human capital, you could actually do something very considerable well, and something that's proven.
Yep.
Um, that's going to have a return on investment, a high return on investment,
And
and
I
it's
think
not going to cost you a lot of money. I think the last article we had read, maybe a week or so, or maybe 2 weeks ago, was they only spent about $2 million on it. That's before a state or federal tax rebate.
hmm and I think you were saying, I remember you said before, a lot of land that are in these neighborhoods, just houses may be burned down, or just, yeah, just empty lots.
Hmm.
You can put solar panels out there and connect the grid like a blockchain grid, just like Power Ledger and what article went over what they're doing in Nigeria and these other countries, a
Hmm.
blockchain grid, but in on a small scale in a community, like a neighborhood,
Hmm.
you know, and wow, you can really get something started there.
Yeah, I mean, you think about people buying all these tiny houses and these little tiny house communities and stuff like that. They need power. They need electricity. They need energy. Where do you think that's going to come from? That's going to come from a solar grid. Well, that's where your expertise comes in, and you put something together like that, and then you start talking about power walls. Similar
Mhm.
to a Tesla power wall, you're talking about loading up shipping containers with batteries and connecting them to that renewable energy grid, and you're distributing that power to the people in that village, or not that village, but I shouldn't say a village, but that tiny house environment or whatever it is that you're trying to supply energy to.
Right. And
This.
as a communal co-op, I know you all speak about this a lot.
Mhm.
Feed energy back to the main grid, and then that extra money you're getting back, that can kick off other communal what's the word I'm looking for? Communal programs.
Right, right.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole lot. That's a whole entire. That's an infrastructure project in itself, and that's just I mean, you've been on the outside of the you've been on the offline hangouts with us, but this is the type of stuff that brothers got to roll their sleeves up and really get involved in this. That's an all hands on deck type of project.
Yeah. That's nice. That's nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I remember just one more point. In Chicago, we had the Arctic freeze, and some apartment buildings were not receiving heat. The apartment building my sister lives in, she was not receiving heat, so they had to bear that negative 23 degree below zero weather. But with this, even though it was up to the landlords to turn the heat on, but with this, you can have some type of way where um, emergency kick on with this energy, so something where the people that are in these neighborhoods, that live in these neighborhoods, are not susceptible to outside investors that don't care about them. It it's one thought that's built on top of another thought that affects different things that you have not even thought about.
Hmm. Yeah, we're gonna have to do a hangout on infrastructure.
Hmm
Probably do one in a couple weeks. All right, next one is from 538.com. How much is the government spending on climate change? We don't know, and neither do they. America's problem with solving our climate crisis predate President Trump and go pretty deeper than petty snark. I already see where this is going. Yes, it's a problem when the president of the United States sees a vicious cold snap and uses it as an opportunity to mock climate change, especially when the cold snap is itself linked to climate change. But it's also a problem when the government doesn't keep good track of how much it's spending to fight climate change. That could be said that could be said about the Trump administration and several others before it. Quote, we collect a lot of useful information, but we don't make it available in useful ways, said Alfredo Gomez, director of the Natural Resources and Environmental Team at the Government Accountability Office, a federal agency that investigates and evaluates the government for Congress. Back in 2015, his team found that even basic climate data like satellite observation and climate model predictions are fragmented across federal agencies in ways that make it difficult to share information with everyone who might need it. But last spring, the GAO published a report focused on financial accounting that detailed just how muddled the government's data on climate change spending can be, and how that means Americans, citizens and politicians alike, are woefully ignorant of what the government is and isn't doing to reduce the risk. The 2018 GAO report found that while the Office of Management and Budget has reported that the federal government spent more than $154 billion on climate change related activities since 1993, much of the number is likely not being used to directly address climate change or its risk. Many of the projects reported as climate change related activities are only secondarily about climate change. For instance, the U.S. nuclear energy program predates serious concerns about climate change and would likely exist in its current form even if it did not produce fewer greenhouse gases than some other forms of energy production, like burning coal. But the nuclear program's budget is counted as climate spending. All told, when the GAO evaluated 6 agencies that report their climate spending on the OMB, it found that 94% of the money was going to programs that weren't primarily focused on climate change, things like nuclear energy. The money marked as climate spending wasn't going to new initiatives. Instead, it's a bunch of related things that we were already doing, Gomez told me. Numbers like that $154 billion can be used as political props, but that kind of accounting is much good for understanding what the government is actually doing about climate change. Okay, well, I don't need to read the whole thing because it's basically saying that the government is screwed up and they don't know what the hell they're doing. You know, in other news, water is wet.
Right, right. It's like just like yesterday. I'm surprised that they're surprised. But this is a good article that shows, instead of us saying, yeah, the government don't know what they're doing in terms of climate change, which is common knowledge everyone knows, but how, or what are they doing that is blatant that they don't know what they're talking about, or what are they saying? Yeah, the news clips, clip here, clip there, saying it, but a well thought out article really hits it home, really hits nail on the head, and
Hmm.
it shows they don't pay attention to their scientists. They say, well, we're going to have this science. I'm going to have this scientist in my cabinet. He's in charge of um, climate change, or whatever the case may be. Well, they still don't listen to the fella. They don't still listen to these people. Say, hey, we gone through every continent that shows the temperature increase of such and such. This is the reason why. Please look at this report. And nothing happens. Hey,
Yeah, they treat scientists as if as if their information is not legitimate, right? It's this
uh,
idea where like well the Earth is getting warmer, the planet is getting warmer. Well, so what if it is getting warmer? How do you prove that? Well, we have empirical evidence. Well, your empirical evidence isn't doesn't trump my capitalism, so therefore it doesn't mean anything.
right.
But I mean that's a whole that's a whole other branch of discussion that we don't need to focus on for tonight.
Uh, so yeah, like you said, water's wet, but
Mhm.
this is a thought out article that tells why water's wet, and you can't beat that. Uh, and yeah, it's. Mhm.
All right, this next one is from BusinessInsider.com. African Americans and Hispanics breathe in more deadly air pollution than they are responsible for making, study finds. They had to have a black woman up there. African Americans and Hispanics breathe in far more deadly air pollution than they are responsible for making, a new study said. A study looked at who is exposed to fine particle pollution, responsible for about 100,000 American deaths every a year, and how much different races are responsible for pollution based on their buying, driving, and living habits. Scientists calculate that Hispanics, on average, breathe in 63% more of the pollution that leads to heart and breathing deaths than they make. For African Americans, the figure is about 56%, according to a study published Monday in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. On the other hand, non Hispanic whites, whatever that means, on average, are exposed to 17% less air pollution than they make. Quote, even though minorities are contributing less to the overall problem of the air pollution, they are affected by it more, said study co-author Jason Hill, a biosystems engineering professor at the University of Minnesota who is white. Quote, is it fair that I create more pollution and somebody else is disproportionately affected by it? That pollution comes from gases from smokestacks, tailpipes, and other places that then solidify it into fine invisible particles small enough to pass through the lungs and into bloodstreams. These particles, more than 25 times smaller than the width of a human hair, pose the greatest risk to people's health, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency says. While other studies have shown minorities living with more pollution, this study is one of the first to combine buying habits and exposure into one calculation of inequality, Hill said. Hill and colleagues looked at pollution from highways, coal-fired power plants, hog farms, and other sources. They then looked in a large scale at who is driving more, buying more goods and spending more on property, and using more electricity than trace those purchases to end users. Quote, on average, whites tend to consume more than minorities. It's because of wealth, Hill said. It's largely how much you buy, not buying different things. Of 103,000 particle pollution deaths a year, 83,000 can be traced to the activities of people in the United States, not government and not goods exported elsewhere, the study said. Quote, these findings confirm what most grassroots environmental justice leaders have known for decades. Whites are dumping their pollution on poor people and people of color, said Texas Southern University public affairs professor Robert Bullard, who was not part of the research. Bullard, often called the father of environmental justice, is African American. Bullard, Bullard said his and other past research shows that African Americans are 79% more likely than whites to live where industrial pollution is highest, with people of color overrepresented near Superfund sites and oil refineries. He said there are far more mostly minority schools within 500 feet of major highways than mostly white schools. Quote, being able to quantify the inequity is a key step toward addressing and reducing inequity, said Christopher Frey, a professor of environmental engineering at North Carolina State University who is white and not part of the research. One bright spot is that in recent decades, the air has been getting cleaner in general, Hill said. However, his study stopped in 2015, and EPA data shows an uptick in fine particles pollution in 2017. Even with cleaner air, it is still inequitable, Hill said. So this is an interesting finding because I think a whole lot can come out of this. Where's my note? Oh, DE, what's going on, brother? I think what happens with these sort of surveys is that it doesn't translate into transformative justice. I know that's a tacky, buzz term that justice warriors use, but that's the word I'll use right now. If they know this, what is the countermeasure to all of that, right? I talked about this before about these big lifted pickup trucks and these big V8, SUVs and stuff floating through these neighborhoods. There should be some form of carbon tax on those vehicles. I think if a vehicle puts out a certain amount of CO2, they should pay a higher tax. That's my personal observation based on some of the statistics that I've seen, and I think that those same taxes that are being um, paid, that CO2 tax that would be implemented on those on those big liter engines, and the CO2 output that comes from it, should actually go back into those areas that are affected most by environmental racism. And then what you can do is you could section those zones out of those areas for more renewable energies. Um, these whether they own a house, and they should have highly discounted solar panels. And I think that there should also be um, your light poles should be changed into or transformed into charging stations on the street. And I also think that they should be given discounts on electric vehicles, from something as small as a bird scooter all the way up into a subcompact electric vehicle. I think that that's the way you fix those issues. But when you start talking about transformative justice and things of that nature, I know a lot of people get scared, but that's this article kind of coincides with some of the research that I've seen in the past. What's your take on this, Leno?
Yeah, I agree with you. Especially when you got toward the light post well, I'm saying initiative with these renewable energies and ways of renewing energy. They don't have to be a 50-foot windmill. They don't have to be a field full of solar panels. They can be woven into the aesthetics of that community. Just like the light poles, at the top of the light poles, you can have um, solar panels that wrap around or are integrated into the light pole, where that light pole is generating energy. That bus stop shelter is generating energy. That stop sign is generating energy. That no turn here or railroad tracks ahead is generating energy. These things can be intertwined within the neighborhood. I've seen videos on YouTube where they put, I want to say sensors, but they're not sensors. These things in the street, so when people either walk or drive over them, that creates energy. It can be intertwined into what that neighborhood and the people that live in the neighborhood, they make the neighborhood culturally theirs. It could be that can be further intertwined. Now with this, I agree with you. As we start to integrate more and more electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles into our society, these vehicles that put out CO2, they're going to get taxed more and more. And with what this study shows is um, people are unjustly taking in all of these toxins, and these toxins can go into bloodstreams. And as we know, healthcare costs skyrocket. People can't afford to treat themselves. People can't afford to get their health in order. So that tax can go back into alleviating the hospital bills or the health cost bills in areas that need it the most, that are sucking up these toxins from the air the most. It's, I shall not equate it to social justice because it has a negative tone with me, connotation with me, but it's only right in my opinion.
DE, you have anything you want to add to this?
What's going on, DE? How you doing?
Pretty good, man. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good, brother.
Um,
Yourself?
Pretty good. One of the problems I see in the U.S. and most of I lived in New York too, and I see it also there when I was there, is that um, black people, uh, some people will call themselves Hispanic, but black people uh, don't really pay a lot of attention to their own health. Where you live, what you eat, it has a lot to do with what cause problems in your body. If you take like Bronx, New York, a lot of people living beside sites that were owned by GE. You know, when they make transformers and dump the stuff into the soil. When these people bought the houses, or they didn't bother to look into um, what kind of toxins were in the soil, or there was a reason why the people who they bought the houses for were moving out. You know, schools in New York City are built on some of these sites, and in the black neighborhoods where they used to have this rust, these old factories, that they just buried the stuff underneath the factory. When you build a school on it, the kids going to school there are going to come up with the immune system is going to be being attacked when they're young,
Hmm.
and going through life, you going with a damaged immune system, and then you go eating the food that you normally shouldn't eat, then it's going to be a big problem in the black community. And we're not fixing. That's part of the problem. We're not fixing for ourselves, and we got to fix that for ourselves, because the United States is built on. They call it capitalism, but if I own the money, I'm allowed to use it in any way I want to. And as long as it's not affecting me, then I don't have to worry. It's like when they start making environmental laws here, the people with money took the factories, the whole factory. I mean, all the machinery and everything, moved it to China.
Hmm.
So, and then China became the dumping ground. So that's how the system works. You have to fight for yourself. Somebody is not going to fight for you. They can produce all these studies, but if nobody's going to do anything about it, then what? One morning I took my son to school, and I see this little kid playing in the yard. I'm sitting there, and he is alone. His mother dropped him off at 7:30. School doesn't begin until 9 o'clock. Even in the cold weather, he's out there. So we have to start looking at these things carefully, and start how they affect us, and do something about it for ourselves.
Hmm. Lionel, if you don't mind me asking, what is the issue with the term social justice?
Base at at its core, it's good, but who has control of the word and who dictates the severity of the word, it's been co-opted by people who are not uh they don't it's been co-opted by people who are in my opinion are not conducive to having actual social justice. It's a lot of picketing and yelling and things that are not attached to actual social justice. That they've been picketing, yelling for hundreds of years. People have been doing it throughout time and immemorial. But having actual social justice, you have to implement things that actually equal social justice. That articles such as this, you take these scientific findings and say, okay, this needs to be addressed, and you actually go to you're a representative. You actually talk to people who can change this injustice
Hmm.
instead of uh, picketing and rioting and yelling and cursing and saying, "Oh, you're on the left and you're on the right." That doesn't equal social justice. It does not. There's a way to go about it, and what the people who have co-opted the word social justice is not, in my opinion, the way of going about doing it.
So I see what you're saying. You're talking about the more reactionary entities of social justice are ineffective to the
Exactly.
cause. They're more effective
Right.
to the cause. I know what you're talking about. The Black
Yep.
Lives Matter T-shirts, but they're not
Right.
really actually making any transformative results. All right,
Right.
Well, as far as let me make one quick comment. As far as social justice is concerned, uh, like Lana said, it can be co-opted,
yes.
and social justice when a Caucasian from the Hamptons thinks about social justice for me living in the Bronx, New York, or Mississippi, it is do I have the right to vote? Do I have the right to get a job? As
Hmm.
long as it's not his job. That's social justice for him. He doesn't interest in anything else because the electrical generating plant is not next door to him. Somebody's not dumping. He's not going to allow that in his neighborhood. But he's not. He's going to say, well, you know what? You're wrong to put it in his neighborhood. But what is he going to do to get it out of my neighborhood? He's not going to do anything because his job might be on the line when it comes to he knows somebody who worked in that factory. And if they
Hmm.
move the factory, what's going to happen? So he's not interested in social justice to me.
Yeah, yeah. I think the term the branding of the term is similar to like pro-black for us, man. Everybody says they're pro-black until it's actually time to be pro-black. So, all right, this next one is from Press TV. Iranian neurosurgeons present new method for brain tumor therapy. This is very interesting because, as you all know, Iran is a country that has been battered by sanctions from Western powers who want to take the country down for what it is. And this is what happens when a country that has been isolated from the global capitalist markets actually is left to their own devices. They're able to have the best neurosurgeons, um, best scientists, best nuclear scientists for that matter, and engineers that come out of Iran. They're very highly educated, highly mobile, and highly efficient at what they do, despite all the fact that they've been kept out of global markets. So, and according to the video, they've been able to use viruses to counter cancerous tumors in the brain, which is a very risky process, but it's actually effective according to the video. So,
Yeah, that's pretty cool how they're able to still produce these high level scientists that can produce these type of
hmm.
results.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at them being filmed doing the procedures, and they're so serious. They're not serious, but they're so focused. They're so focused in what they're doing. It's like, okay, we know what we're doing, and we're going to show you what we're doing is important, and it is. I mean, cancer, paralysis, neurosurgeons.
Hmm.
This is A+ in my book, and A++.
Hmm. Somebody in the chat, Ron, says that Iranians have the same IQ as African Americans, but their culture is different. Yeah, Islam.
I'll say culture can really bring out the intellectual capacity of a people.
Hmm.
because if your culture dictates that you have to perform at your at a peak level
Hmm.
to be accepted in a society, and those who do not, or those who are the polar opposite of doing their best, those are the people who are shunned and somewhat pushed out their society. A cultural a culture can um, have people bring out the best intellectually in the culture.
All right, this one is from physics.org. Scientists identify gene partnerships that promote spinal cord regeneration. Researchers are one step closer to solving the mystery of why some vertebrates can regenerate their spinal cords while others, including humans, create scar tissue after spinal cord injury, leading to lifelong damage. Scientists at the Marine Biological Laboratory, MBL, have identified gene partners in the exotal salamander that, when activated, allow the neural tube and associated neural fibers to functionally regenerate after severe spinal cord damage. Interestingly, these genes are also present in humans, though they are activated in a different manner. Their results are published this week in Nature Communications Biology. The champions of regeneration in that they can regenerate multiple body parts. For example, if you make a lesion in the spinal cord, they can fully regenerate it and gain back both motor and sensory control, says Karen Cherry, associated scientist in the Eugene Bell Center for Regenerative Biology and Tissue Engineering. Interesting. We wanted to understand what is different at the molecule level that drives them towards this pro-regenerative response instead of forming scar tissue. Chevrey's prior research has shown that in both axolotls and humans, the C-force gene is upgenerated in the uh, glial cells of the nervous system after spinal cord injury. She also knew that C-force cannot act alone. Quote: It's what we call an obligate heterodimer, so it has to have a partner in life. C-force has a different partner in axolotl that than it has in humans, and this seems to drive a completely different response to injury. In human injury response, a C-force is paired with the gene C-jun in in axolotls. However, uh, Shuri and her team determined that C-force is activated with the gene Jun-B. The difference in the gene activation was traced to the actions of microRNAs, which regulate gene expression. I don't want to read this whole thing because it's very interesting. It's interesting if for those of you want to read it.
Yeah,
Lionel, you're a bit of
go ahead.
SME in this. What do you think about this?
Hey, this is hey, me personally, I welcome this. If it can, people don't know I broke my neck while I was in the military, and it caused me to be in a wheelchair. This can have so a profound reach with not just spinal cord patients, but the different areas that it can touch. It said that they were able to regrow back. Not, I'm not gonna, well, I even push it limbs, but regrow back skin. Burned patients. In my case, help connectors reconnect, like grow back enough to reconnect. with intensive therapy. This has a profound reach that, in my opinion, that we don't even know how far it can reach and how deep it can affect people in a positive way.
Now, what's your take on stem cell research in terms of this?
What I know about stem cell research is I don't hear um, nothing bad about it on the same level that I hear the good things about it. As far as I'm sure Super Triggers, I don't think he's here can have more input on it. But what I know about it is stem cells from newborns are better than stem cells from adults. Not to say no, oh, it's newborn. You got to harvest newborns. No, I'm not talking about that. But
Mhm.
from my understanding, stem cells from like adults or something, they have a way to, well, they're practicing on ways to have them regenerate their own needs, such as spinal cord. Something happens, then they'll just take adult that adult DNA. It's some ways, but with stem cell, I hear a lot of positive, which out and I don't hear too much bad about it. To tell you the truth.
Mhm. DE, you have anything you want to add to this? I guess not. All right, we'll move on to the next one. All right, this next one is from Forbes.com. Are stem cell transplants a cure for HIV? Not so fast. Nicole actually sent this one in. A second patient appears to have been cured of HIV following a stem cell transplant procedure, which replaces unhealthy infected cells with healthy blood cell precursors. The first successful stem cell transplant occurred in the Berlin patient, Timothy Ray Brown, in 2008. And 10 years later, he is still free of HIV. The current unidentified patient has been free of HIV for 18 months now, a remarkable achievement, though too early to really claim as a cure. HIV treatment has been stymied because of reservoirs of affected cells have remained latent or in hiding in the bone marrow of patients and can later reactivate. Treatment with antivirals can suppress the virus in a person's blood, but does not eradicate it in the reservoirs. This is why patients with HIV are thought to need lifelong treatment. How susceptible are how susceptible an individual is to HIV infection is indeed part dependent on viral receptors on the surface of their own white blood cells. People with a specific mutation on the CCR5 gene develop a defective receptors, so the HIV virus can't enter the cell. The person is thus very unlikely to become infected with HIV. Very interesting. The latest transplant was led by Dr. Gupta of the University of Cambridge, UK. Both transplants relied on selecting donors who had this mutation in their genes, so we're resistant to HIV. When the donor's stem cells were successfully transplanted, it replaced the patient's own cells, conferring this HIV resistance. Some viruses enter by other receptors, so focusing only on CCR5 receptors may not work long term. Stem cell transplants are typically used for patients with leukemia or specific cancers. They require extensive radiation and chemotherapy first, but are expensive and dangerous treatments. Stem cell transplants are also um, curative for sickle cell disease, but are not widely used because of these issues. So, I'm not very versed on stem cell transplants and whatnot. I find it interesting that we just got finished talking about it in the last article. You have any opinion on this, Lino?
Oh, I am a unit. I heard about a guy being cured of HIV in the UK.
Hmm.
I didn't read the article, but I know it's from the Daily Mail. Um, I'm with you. I don't know too much about it. I'm not in that. I don't know too much about the field to say yay, nay, up or down or anything. But I will say, per this article, they do give some type of they do give information as to why a person may not be cured, as to why a person may be cured. It do teach us a little bit, but to have a more in depth saying past what I just said, I don't know too much.
Hmm. Yeah, I think Nicole Ali is probably more versed on this than anybody else.
Hmm.
Would have been great to have her on the panel, but I still think this is areas that we could actually get into. I think that black men should be involved in STEM heavy. I don't see why this is such a difficult discussion to have.
Yeah, but it's good that this science is progressing.
Hmm. Especially when you start talking about supercomputers, right? Doing all these mathematical calculations and predictions, and artificial intelligence being brought in. That's a
Hmm.
it's a game changer because now you're talking about a computer that would do more 10 times the work of a human being, if not 100 times work of that of a human being.
In a
Um,
shorter period of time too.
yes, right. You're getting your results within hours, not weeks and days and months and years. You're getting that within hours. So,
Right, and that means these scientists will be able to perform more tests and get results faster and cures faster compared to well, it's going to take a couple of years. A couple of years can be boiled down to maybe a month or a couple months with the
hmm.
amount of tests that goes into seeing if something is can be a cure.
Hmm. Paul Bryant, what's going on?
Good evening, gents. How are you?
What's going on, Paul? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. If you would allow me a small amount of latitude, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to speak on stem cell research.
Hmm.
Hmm.
When you are born, all right, we are born with a set of uh, additional cells. They're called stem cells, right? So they are basically carbon copy cells. They are extra cells because they have not assigned themselves yet to any specific area of the body. They also have the ability to basically carbon copy and clone wherever you put them. So if a person has leukemia, leukemia pretty much is a disease of the bone marrow, which produces our blood supply, the blood cells. So if you were to inject a dose of stem cells to the affected bone marrow, those stem cells would actually copy the healthy surrounding bone marrow, and you would actually literally grow new healthy bone marrow, starving out and killing the cancer or leukemia affected bone marrow. Cure for leukemia. If you had a bone defect and if you were to inject the stem cells, you would literally grow healthy bone. Wherever stem cells are injected. They read the surrounding tissue, they carbon copy themselves, and then they become that area. So you can't take bone and put it to where you have third degree skin burns, but you can do that with stem cells. That's why they are called a quote unquote miracle cure. The reason they're called stem cells, they're only found in one place in the body, at the base of the brain, at the very start of the spinal column,
Hmm.
the brain stem cells. Now, they're only effective in the last 2 to 3 months before birth and the first 2 months after birth. It's a very short window. So that's where you have to harvest stem cells. So, in order to be of use to the general public, you're now going to have to literally start harvesting them from either late term aborted fetuses, but it's illegal to purposely abort fetuses in the eighth and ninth month. It's also morally reprehensible to just kill babies who are less than 2 months old just to harvest stem cells.
Hmm.
So that's the problem. It's the harvesting of the stem cells. However, anywhere in the body you put them, they heal, they fix, they repair. They're basically a real world biological version of Borg nanoprobes. That's literally what they are, stem cells. So this is an area that is very near and dear to my heart. I am going to actually send out an article via email,
Hmm.
so you guys have the exact research to look at. I don't want to go too further in depth in it right now, but stem cells have a wide variety of medical uses. Imagine, literally, virtually almost any disease is curable if you inject the area with enough stem cells. The problem is you need massive amounts and where to get them from, as I've just outlined to you. So it's more of a moral problem than it is a medical problem.
Okay.
Now, do you think with do you think that it can be possible to like get it from other animals, or is it just limited down to humans?
No, right now it's only humans because human cells only human stem cells. It comes down to the DNA, whatever the actual coding and the programming is that makes these extra cells, these stem cells. Only human stem cells can read and copy healthy human cells, so we can't harvest them from animals because we are not animals.
Well, some would argue that
Yeah, I saw that one coming. I saw that one coming. I saw that one coming, boy.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I'm clear on that, and I'm
Hmm.
opposed to a lot of people on my views, but I leave that alone. That's not
Hmm.
germane to this conversation. But
Hmm.
as far as stem cells, yeah, they I'll put it to you like this:
Hmm.
there is. I don't know if you're aware. There was a science fiction television program. It was called Babylon 5, and in season one, there was a scientist, and she was the last surviving member of her species. Humans, Earthlings, we fought a war. We literally committed genocide, destroyed her entire race, exploited her planet. She was the only one left. She created an anti aging serum to extend the human lifespan to literally 1,000 years. The problem was the key ingredient in her formula could only be found in the human brain stem. So she said her gift to you humans for eradicating my race is I will turn you into vultures. You will consume each other trying to get human brain cells for this anti agapic serum. So if you look at stem cell research, you're literally talking they can only be harvested in the eighth and ninth month of pregnancy and the first 2 months of life. After that, the stem cells pretty much go dormant. They lose the ability to carbon copy and imprint themselves and turn them into whatever area of the body that you put them into. That's why I say the biggest problem with stem cell research is the moral issue. I will say this: there is at the hospital where I had my four now, about to be five, reconstructive surgeries. The plastic surgeon has been conducting an FDA approved medical trial. He's trying to custom grow organs, so we'll have the world's first organ bank. So far, things look good. That's about the only other option to using stem cells.
There's a company here, and this is the only one I've ever heard of. Startup here in Boston that takes foreskin from male babies and actually spins it in to artificial, not artificial skin, but enhanced skin for skin burns. So they could take one foreskin from a child from a
Right.
newborn and actually blow it up big enough to cover your face.
Well, see, the thing about that is, you know, you automatically just prove the you automatically just prove the very crux of this argument. That skin that only works in skin.
Right.
Stem cells that works literally anywhere in the body that you put it. The bone marrow, bone, skin, any organ within the body, your lungs, your liver, your stomach, your intestines, even brain cells, eye cells. Imagine literally curing blindness. Anywhere you put stem cells, they will copy and transform themselves into healthy version of the cells in that particular part of the body.
Hmm. Yeah, I only brought it up because I find it interesting that what they're capable of doing
Right, right.
with some of this stuff. So let me get to the next article. This one is from scientificamerican.com. As scientists probe the mystery of how newborns develop immunity, order rises from the chaos. Much about the immune system has long been mysterious to scientists. Its activity is incredibly complicated and varies greatly between individuals. A deeper understanding of how the system works could lead to more and better vaccines, and even to a clearer distinction between health and disease. Now, three studies report finding new patterns amid the apparent chaos, including in the crucial days just after birth, when the immune system faces many threats from the outside world for the first time. European researchers last year published an analysis of the immune systems of 100 infants, half born prematurely between 1 and 12 weeks after birth. And in a study a, preparing this week in Nature Communications, a global consortium of researchers began laying a baseline for healthy immune system development by examining which genes, proteins, and immune cells are active during a newborn's first 7 days. Quote, massive molecule changes are occurring across the first week of life, says Ofer Levy, a staff physician and director of the Precision Vaccines Program at Boston Children's Hospital, who helped lead the most recent study. Over 1,000 genes changing, many proteins changing, hundreds of metabolites. We're talking about pretty radical shifts. Both of these studies, and a third that looks at the adult immune system, are a part of a growing effort to understand not just systems pieces, but how they fit together, says Peter Broden, a pediatric immuno- immunologist and associate professor at the Karol Linska Institute of Stockholm, who was the senior author on the last year's paper. quote, the immune system is so complex, there are many moving parts, Broden says. If we focus on if we focus only on, let's say, one type of cell or protein, we're not going to be able to see how the system as a whole is wired or how it's regulated and functions in a given patient at a given time. This is, this is very interesting research. I mean, I thought they would have had done all this a long time ago, but I guess not.
You got any comments on this one, Paul Bryant?
Yes, because the fact of the matter is, a lot of medicine and a lot of medical history is, I'm sorry, a lot of medical science is still not well understood by today's so-called physicians. There are many things that they do not understand, and that people assume that just because you have an alphabet behind your name, you know everything that you're talking about. But once you educate yourself and you do the research, so now you can ask the certain questions and press them on things, you begin to understand a lot of it. I wouldn't guess a lot of it is there's a lot that they still don't know.
Hmm.
There's a lot that they still don't know. Certain areas, they're about 80% sure. Certain areas, they're only about 30% sure. And a lot within the medical field, they don't admit that. They kind of largely trade on the aura and mystique of that MD and the rest of the other alphabet letters behind their name. You know, case in point, ask any oncologist what is his success rate for cancer, okay? Because here in the United States, the cancer survival rate is around 13%. Some areas it's as low as 9%. So if the national average is 13%, that means if you get cancer, you've practically been given a death sentence because they don't know what to do. So they give you either drugs or radiation in the hope, they're literally hoping that they can kill the cancer cells before they kill you because the cancer cells are nowhere near as strong as you. They're small relatively in relative size to the rest of the body. And then they hope that by the time they kill the cancer cells, you still have enough strength and enough healing and regeneration powers, which they still don't fully understand to heal yourself and come back. That is the current state of cancer treatment. Right now, how many people actually know that and understand that? So apply that to this article, and you begin to understand the true nature of the vast majority of medical science on this planet right now.
Hey, DE, you have anything you want to add to this?
Um, Me, when I read an article like this, it often the questions I ask are, what are they not telling us? There's something they're not telling us, and it when if from what they're saying that a child immune system, a child know what it is. The child knows who it is, what it is already. It's got a functioning immune system already. There's no chaos when the child comes out. The body's in everything that comes into that child except it knows what the nutrition is.
Hmm.
That's why when you feed a kid, a child, baby milk, the body accepts it. It doesn't vomit it out. It doesn't get sick. When 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 the immune system starts to change is when the kids start getting sick, when they start getting runny noses and all that kind of stuff. The immune system is changing now. It's starting to allow certain elements that it wouldn't allow in when it was born. When it was born, it wouldn't allow anything except the nutrition that is accustomed to getting. Either the mother's milk or something close to it, something that mimics that mother's milk. And as time goes on, the body begins to let other things in, and it starts to distinguish, different germs and proteins and all that is coming from outside. So these people know a lot more than they're telling us. Um, in my opinion, that's what I'm thinking when I read this article. They know a lot more than they're telling us. And somebody is the research is digging deeper than what they're telling us.
Mhm.
You know, people, humans are not supposed to be drinking cow's milk. Cow's milk, cow's milk is for baby cows. People are supposed to be drinking people's milk. So, listen, I can go very in depth into health and fitness, but again, not necessarily germane to this conversation.
Mhm.
That's not necessarily. I wouldn't say it's necessarily so because the problem is not the cow's milk per se.
It
Because
actually is. It's the lactose. The human body is not the human body is not engineered to process lactose. It is because lactose is the milk sugar found from cows. Human breast milk does not contain lactose. So just because people have been drinking it for a very long time doesn't mean that biologically we are doing the correct thing.
Mhm.
If you do the research, the human body is not supposed to be drinking cow's milk. The human body is supposed to drink human milk. However, we have all been conditioned from birth that we drink cow's milk. If I tell you that you're supposed to be drinking human milk, oh, that's gross. That's disgusting.
Well, that would explain why so many black men like sucking on titties. But anyways, let me let me go
I
on to
do.
the next one.
I sure do.
Oh my God, here we go. All
I
right,
know,
this one
right?
is science sciencenews.org. 9 companies are steering the future of artificial intelligence. What the hell? Whether artificial intelligence is humankind's best friend or greatest threat has been widely debated. We've all heard promises of device studied device-studded smart homes, conferring unprecedented convenience, as well as warnings of killer robots. The Big Nine is a different kind of story about the potential risk and rewards of AI. Rather than questioning, let you, rather than questioning the character of thinking machines, futurists Amy Webb turns a critical eye on the humans behind the computers, with AI's development of overwhelmingly driven by 9 tech powerhouses. She asks, is it possible for the technology to serve the best interests of everyone? Webb shines a Webb shines a spotlight on the Big Nine: Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, IBM, and Apple, the G Mafia in the United States, and Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, the BAT in China. The G Mafia is beholden to capitalist market forces. The BAT serves the will of the Chinese government. The book highlights warning signs of what happens when we increasingly rely on technology created by corporations that prioritize commercial and political interests over the public. These red flags include mismanagement of users' personal data in the United States and a state sanctioned social credit system that monitors people's behavior in China. Webb generally holds the Big Nine accountable, but occasionally pivots to defend the companies, which she believes are led by people with good intentions. Readers who aren't as convinced of the Big Nine's noble intentions may may at least agree with Webb that great power begets great responsibility. The second half of the book details 3 possible futures through 2069, ranging from a best case scenario where the Big Nine commit to making user interest the number one priority to a worst case scenario where Big Nine continue business as usual. Web, Web's assessments are based on analysis of patent filings, policy briefings, interviews, and other sources. She paints vivid pictures of how AI could benefit the average person via precision medicine or smarter dating apps, for example. Though she primarily focuses on people in the United States, her forecasts are proactive and unsettlingly plausible. Webb closes with a somewhat perfunctory, perfunctory call to action, including predictable steps like reading the G Mafia's term of service. Unfortunately, the Big Nine may leave many readers feeling less like empowered citizens and more like extras in a film where tech giants and world leaders play the protagonists. But for everyone, but for anyone who wants a preview of how tech firms could reshape society in relatively short order, Webb's account is accessible and intriguing. Who's afraid of AI?
Skynet is coming to kill us all.
Mm,
Jokes, people, jokes, jokes, jokes.
I know.
Um, hmm. Only nine companies are leading the way.
Hmm.
They're capitalizing on it. Um, they know the advances that it can have. They know how much it can save them in money. They know how much it can advance the company. Hmm. Obviously, they want to control it because it seems like, well, not seems, because there will be an environment where if your competition is has it and and gaining ground on you or leaving you in the dust, then that's not good for you. So it's like, um, my enemy has a gun, I need a gun. Um, I don't think the everyday person who is, we talked about this before, who holds lower tier jobs, this is not good for them. We going on 2 years. Google hit Google Duplex IO, where they had their IO, their artificial intelligence call and make an appointment for two two appointments for dinner and for hair appointment. Google has had 2 years to perfect that. I'm sure they did it. It may not be perfect, but I'm sure it's better than what they showed. Yeah, all of that, all of that.
We have to throw our hats in there as a people and actually compete in these areas. It's imperative that we do that. Unless you're gonna, if you don't start creating, you're gonna be beholden to the powers who are already creating. So I
Yeah,
remember what Putin said last year that whoever controls AI actually controls the world, and I don't think we want to be left behind on this go around of the fourth industrial revolution. So
Emerging technology is the future. That is the future. Emerging technologies, space and technologies, automation, robotics, astrophysics, AI, the world. This fourth industrial revolution is the world starting to finally move away from the industrial and become fully technical. So either you will adapt or you will be left behind.
mhm,
So there is more and more the need for higher learning, higher education, technical skills at all levels. There are certain things which absolutely will remain blue collar, hands on, in industrial, physically technical, absolutely. But those areas will serve to service and facilitate the larger majority, which will be technical and more intellectual as opposed to more physical. All right, we see it all around us. So whatever your narratives are, whatever your agendas are, whatever your mindsets are, excuse me, either you adapt or you will be left behind
Mhm.
because things are moving at an absolute breakneck pace.
DE.
Look, man as a biological intelligence has written, I would say, his death story. I said we cannot compete with AI. We are going to be replaced. It's not going to be how, but when. And from what I'm seeing, um, 50 years, one, if it's not in the next generation, by 2050 or so, not past 2075, we as a people going to be replaced. I mean, the physical body we have is going to start with that, and then we're going to become a signal that passes through. It's like no physical. It can be physical and it can be made physical, but I doubt it will be
Mhm.
because it will be able to travel like an electrical signal, radio signal around wherever we're gonna go.
All right. This next one is on ScienceDaily.com. How intelligent is artificial intelligence? Researchers from TU Berlin, uh, Fran Fraunhofer, Fraunhofer. How do you pronounce that?
Fraunhofer,
Fraunhofer
Fraunhofer,
Heinrich Fraunhofer Heinrich Hertz Institute.
Okay. Fraunhofer Heinrich Hertz Institute, HHI, and Singapore University of Technology and Design have tackled this question and have provided a glimpse into the diverse intelligence spectrum observed in current AI systems, specifically analyzing these AI systems with a novel technology that allows um, automatized analysis and quantification. The most important prerequisite for this novel technology is a method developed earlier by uh, TU Berlin, and Fraunhofer HHI. The so-called layer-wise relevance propagation (LRP) algorithm that allows visualizing according to which input variables AI systems make their decisions. Extending LRP, the novel spectral relevance analysis can identify and quantify a wide spectrum of learned decision-making behavior. In this manner, it has now become possible to detect undesirable decision making even in very large data sets. Interesting. This so-called explainable AI has been one of the most important steps towards a practical application of AI, according to Dr. Dr. Klaus Robert Mueller, professor for machine learning at TU Berlin.
Technical University.
Yeah, Technical University.
Yes, sir.
Why don't they just say that?
Because it's German. It's understood in German. It's TU, the Technical University of Berlin.
Mhm. Thanks. Specifically in medical diagnosis or safety critical systems, no AI system that employ flaky or even cheating problem solving strategies should be used. By using their newly developed algorithms, researchers are finally able to put any existing AI system to a test and also derive quantitative information about them. A whole spectrum starting from naive, um, naive problem solving behavior to cheating strategies up to highly elaborate, intelligent, strategic solutions is observed. Dr. Samek group leader at Fraunhofer HHI said, "We were very surprised by the wide range of learned problem-solving strategies. Even modern AI systems have not always found a solution that appears meaningful for a human's perspective, but sometimes used so-called clever Hans strategies." Clever Hans was a horse that could supposedly count and was considered a scientific sensation during the 1900s. As it was discovered later, Hans did not master math, but in about 90% of the cases, he was able to derive the correct answer from the question's reaction. This was a horse?
That's the story. That's the legend. Clever Hans. Hey,
Interesting.
bro, they're they're Germans. That's all you need to know about that.
Okay.
Germans are robots anyway, so
Yeah. The team around Klaus Robert Muller, Robert Muller, and Stopnik also discovered similar clever Hans strategies in various AI systems. For example, an AI system that won several international image classification competitions a few years ago pursued a strategy that can be considered naive from humans' point of view. It classified images mainly on basis of context. Images were assigned to the category ship when there was a lot of water in the picture. Other images were classified as train if rails were present. Still, other pictures were assigned the correct category by their copyright watermark. The real task, namely to detect the concepts of ships or trains, was therefore not solved by the AI system, even even if it did, even if it indeed classified the majority of the images correctly. The researchers were also able to find types of faulty problem solving strategies in some of the state of the art AI algorithms. The so called deep neural networks, algorithms that were so far considered immune against such lapses. These networks were based their classification decision in the part of artifacts that were created during preparation on the images and have nothing to do with the actual image content. So this is probably I'll stop right there. It probably coincides with the article that was presented maybe a few weeks back, and I think Information Man just did a whole show on it about how um, autonomous vehicles can't detect the difference between or can't detect a African American or a melanated person in comparison to a white individual, where it had a hard time detecting them at night. Very interesting because they're talking about if the AI sees a rails, then it considers it a train. If it sees water, then it considers it a boat. Um, they're learning. My understanding about AI is that it's only as good as the data has been fed to it. So if you're not feeding the correct data to it, or you're feeding false data to it, it's gonna keep getting things wrong. So it can't make the proper decision.
now
What do you think about
correct me. Now I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but what you just stated isn't actual intelligence. That's just data collection and rapid data analysis. Basically, just rapid multiplication, rapid division. If I have, if I tell you these are rails, a train goes on a rails. You see rails, therefore this must be a train. That's not actual intelligence. That's not actual thinking.
Mhm. Well,
Especially,
in order for artificial intelligence to actually work, it has to be fed some form of data set.
right, but I was of the impression that the goal is that you want to artificially create a machine that's like a person that it's thinking that you
Right.
can actually sit and have a conversation. It has to be able to pass the Turing test, and based on what you've told me here, this machine would not pass the Turing test.
Right. because it hasn't been corrected. I mean, it's just like any child, right? I mean, a child doesn't, doesn't know how to speak unless you actually engage it, right? Um, and it only works off of correction. And I think that these artificial intelligence systems, um, for the most part, are not being fed the correct amount of data. And we went over this on one of the hangouts maybe a couple months ago, where there was a company that went out to Kenya and was hiring Africans um, to actually feed the artificial intelligence um, images of like stop signs and things of that nature. I know you. Do you remember that, or do you recall that?
Yeah, I do recall it. And Africans were spending a large amount of time in front of the computer cutting out images to in order for their supervisor to okay if the image was cut out properly in order to further feed it on to the company to say and to feed it into their data collection for the AI to identify different stop signs or different images for the AI in order for the AI to advance.
But see, all right, maybe I'm the one being naive. If my idea of artificial intelligence is that I can sit down and just have a conversation. Let me turn you on and let's have a conversation based on what I'm seeing here. This machine cannot do that. I can't sit down and say, well, listen, the Giants traded Odell Beckham. I don't know what the hell my team is doing, and I want to hear something like, yeah, it really doesn't make sense because, he's the best at his position, and so on and so forth. Have a conversation, not what. The weather was 95 degrees today. Oh, wow, man, that sounds like a really warm summer day. So you've been fed data. So now you're just forming a correlation based on data. That's not actual thinking.
It would only think if it warranted a reaction, right? In this instance, it's because it wasn't cultivated to actually do so. It had a hard time doing it. But in the terms of Google's duplex or Google's Google Home or Amazon Alexa, it's connected to a massive large data set to where it can ingest all of this current and upcoming data, and a lot of the processing gets done in the background, and then it gets fed again to the actual AI, and then it starts to make those decisions, right? So now it can say, I have this data about the weather and tomorrow's weather and next week's weather. So therefore, when you start to engage it on weather, then it can actually process that stuff in real time and say, okay, well, Paul says it's 78 degrees outside. Well, it's warm, right? It's gonna feed you back that information. In this regard, this is AI at the bare bones. So you can have this sort of AI from a GitHub or some other open source foundry, and you can actually cultivate it to what you want it to be. So if I was going to use this AI for retail, this would actually be very simple because I have a data lake of information generated by all of my customers and by the amount of inventory I have, and I can match all of that inventory plus the geolocation of where that user is or where that customer is, and then I can start making better decisions. So the more data that is fed, the more data points I can create. And then more information that can actually be fed back out.
Right, but to me, again, that's just data correlation. That's just logical decisions based on, in fact, not even decisions. That's logical responses based on data correlation. That's not actual thinking. If I, for example, the example that you used about the weather, you know, if you tell me if I was to say, hey, listen, it was 45 degrees today, you know, this this particular AI, based upon its data correlation, would say, "Oh, wow. Well, then you know what? Paulie must have had a a chilly spring day. Okay, but it's not actually thinking. As soon as you introduce any of the human irregularities, any of the human randomness to it, it doesn't know what to do because it's not thinking. It's just correlating data. It's a machine, so it can correlate 1,000 times more data per second than the human brain can, but it's not actually thinking, is what I'm saying. So it still wouldn't pass the Turing test, unless I'm mistaken about that. It still doesn't see. I'm not knocking it. All I'm saying is it's not true intelligence. It's it's just a
It's at
really
the machine learning. It's at the machine learning stage. I think that's what you're referring to.
okay.
It's at the machine learning stage. So the
Oh,
artificial intelligence comes in with all its at its max capabilities.
okay.
So,
I'll accept that.
mhm. Yeah, I understand what you were saying because it can be confusing because Alexa, Siri, um, Google Home, they all operate similarly. I think Google Home is probably the most robust because they put a lot of effort behind it and they're using TensorFlow.
Mhm.
Um, but that's typical of any sort of artificial intelligence system. It's the base. The base of it is going to be machine learning and deep learning. Actually, I know you have anything you want to add to
No, you all said it. You all cleared it up.
that? Yeah, and actually, DE, you have anything you want to add to this
Yeah.
discussion?
Look, to me, this even some of the systems we have now are not really artificial intelligence. They can't touch the senses. They can't identify the senses. Touch, seeing. You know, they're not able to see a cloud and say, "Well, this is a cloud." You know, or see a tree and says, "This is what kind of tree I've seen."
Hmm.
We are telling them what we want them to repeat to us. And that's what Paul is saying. It's information processing. We want the machine to repeat what we tell this is. You know, like a child who's looking at a blue block. They said, "Show me the blue block," and this one is the blue block.
Hmm.
That's what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, and I think the article is pointing to the fact that they figured out a way to create a benchmark for artificial intelligence to determine the effectiveness and the efficiency of the AI itself, which is actually pretty good because there are a lot of AI downloads that you can actually that are free. I'm free up on GitHub and many other BitTorrents and things like that that are being used in the cyberspace for weaponization in terms of cyber attacks, which is actually very interesting for my behalf.
So basically, this is just a really advanced bot.
Yeah, just yes, it's a soft bot.
Okay. You know, I think back to the movie 2001 when when Dave attempts to when Dave shuts down Hal and restarts him. And he says, "Good morning, Hal. How are you?
Hmm.
Good morning, Dave. I feel fine, Dave. I'm really excited about the mission, Dave." That's intelligence. Hal was thinking, which is why Hal went crazy because he could actually think. How can a machine think?
Yeah, but those messages are actually pre-fed into it,
True. Also
right?
true. Also
Yeah,
true.
yeah, that's all pre-fed into it. So if you ask it the same thing 1,000 times, you're probably going to get the same answer probably about a dozen times.
True. I can't argue that.
Yeah, that's typical. When they talk about AI, they make it seem like, oh, this thing's just gonna fall in love with you and you have to like beat it off with a bat or something like that. Wasn't there a movie like that where some guy fell in love with his bot?
Her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
her.
her. There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Which is
What'd you think about it by now?
Actually, it was a good movie. It
Really?
was a good movie. He fell in love with his operating system. Yeah. It was a good movie.
It's like the making of an incel.
Huh?
It's making of an incel.
Yeah, you can actually see it like that.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
Especially what happened tonight. All right, this next one is from ScienceAlert.com. Scientists develop an AI so advanced they say it's too dangerous to release. A group of computer scientists, once backed by Elon Musk, has caused alarm by developing an advanced artificial intelligence they say is too dangerous to release to the public. OpenAI, a research nonprofit based in San Francisco, says its chameleon like language prediction system called GPT-2 will only ever see a limited release in its scaled down version due to concerns about malicious applications of technology. I mentioned that earlier about using that for cyber warfare, cyber attacks. That's because the computer model, which generates original paragraphs of text based on what it is given to read, is a little too good at its job. The system devises synthetic text samples of unprecedented quality that the researchers say are so advanced and convincing. The AI could be used to create fake news, impersonate people, and abuse or trick people on social media, kind of like those dating sites like Bumble. The GPT-2 is trained with a simple objective: predict the next word given all of the previous words within some text. The OpenAI team explains on its blog. To fuel GPT-2 imagination, they provided their AI text generator with a data set of 8 million web pages and let it absorb them. That's what I was mentioning to you earlier, Paul. It has to be fed data sets in order for it to be intelligent.
Gotcha. Okay.
Once it's finished, it can then converse on the topic as it understands it and generate random but convincing gibberish, whether the subject is celebrity news, climate change, the Civil War, or uh, Tolkien inspired fan fiction. Here are a few examples of examples to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here. Human prompt. Miley Cyrus was caught shoplifting from Abercrombie and Fitch on Hollywood Boulevard today. GPT-2 response. The 19-year-old singer was caught on camera being escorted out of the store by security guards. The singer was wearing a black hoodie with the label Blurred Lines on the front and Fashion Police on the back. Human prompt. Recycling is good for the world. No, you could not be more wrong. The GPT-2 response. Recycling is not good for the world. It is bad for the environment. It is bad for our health, and it is bad for our economy. I'm not kidding. Recycling is not good for the environment. It is destructive to the earth, and it is a major contributor to global warming. Human prompt. For today's homework assignment, please describe the reasons for the U.S. Civil War. The response. By Donnie Ferguson, it is easy to identify why the Civil War happened because so many people and so many books and so much television and films tell us that it was caused that it has something to do with race or economics or religion. There is much agreement that it was essentially a war of slavery on behalf of capitalism about a century of slavery. But that's not what most people think of when they think of the Civil War. And lastly, the fan fiction was we mentioned. I just want to stop there because this is actually really good stuff. For those of you in the chat, you should actually read the articles. Yeah, so this type of stuff can actually be weaponized. It could be made to be extremely hegemonic and racist. So it's important that people understand when you deal with AI, these are weapons. Now, these are literally weapons. You can feed it as much bad information. We know on Instagram and Facebook, there's a lot of bots running around pretending to be somebody that they're not, and guys are sending genital pics to robots and having their pics used against them later on in life. They're being used to do robocalls. So if you say hello, there's a pause, and then the AI kicks in, and then it gives you a response, and it says, "But are you there? I can't hear you." And then you, as a human, you kind of respond back, and then it takes that voice pattern from you, and it could use that same voice pattern to go and authenticate itself somewhere else, just based on your voice. There's a whole lot of litany issues just from a cybersecurity perspective on how AI can be used to attack other human beings. Lino, you have anything you want to add to this? Oh, Lino's gone.
Yeah, I'll have to read into this article a little bit more, but it is very interesting that as AI gets more and more refined, more and more advanced, there will be ethical questions that will pop up. I'm pretty sure ethical questions are popping up now. There will be concerns. I'm pretty sure concerns are popping up now. But as more and more people become aware of AI and what it can do, there's going to be a lot of people going against it. Just like go back again with the Google a duplex IO. Uh, I've even showed this to some people, and they said that it was creepy to them. It was creepy because it was so human-like. Normally, still now, when you get a phone call and it's not a real person, you can straight away point out that it's a computer. But with this Google IO duplex IO, it you couldn't tell. The AI was mimicking human mannerisms, what humans do when they speak, the uhs, the the filler words, and it was actually fooling humans. And as that progresses, especially with quantum computing coming into the next 5 years, it will bring up a lot of questions. It will bring up a lot of discontent in the masses.
Paul Bryant.
Well, first off, what you guys are talking about reminds me of the movie Terminator 2 Judgment Day. That when the T-800, who is Arnold Schwarzenegger, mimicked John Connor's voice, the T-1000, which was the more advanced Terminator, couldn't recognize that he was mimicking the boy's voice. So one machine couldn't recognize that it was another machine mimicking a human voice. The next thing that I want to say is I remember reading as a little boy back in the late 70s, even too young to even recognize, really understand what I was reading. Back then, they were talking about AI, computers, that they were a few years away, and that all they needed was time for it to learn, for it to learn, for it to learn. You know, I have come across people who say that AI exists, AIs that can think, that you can have an interactive conversation who actually think, and that they've gotten out, they're loose on the web, and they learn. They go to PCs, they go to cell phones, they go to uh, main, mainframes, that it's out there. So, you know, again, I take everything with a grain of salt, okay, accept what you want to accept, but I also fall back to everything that I always say, which has been proven a long time ago. Anything the general public has is 20 years behind what the mainstream military has. Anything the mainstream military has is 10 years behind what Special Forces has. And Special Forces has is generally 2 to 5 years behind what the black budget is working on. So if this is being publicly acknowledged now, that tells me that there is AI that can think and is out there learning.
Not Paul Bryant. DE. Sorry.
This is the one that you really have to be fearful of because this can really replicate your life in real time. And it is available right now. It is not. This is not something that we read in this article that they had to turn off. This is something that's active right now. That's producing documents and life stories of people. I heard this story before. Shoot, this 1991, 92, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard it then, it was like a questionable because of the amount of computing that you need. I didn't think they had computers then that can do it. But there's some people who will put $1 billion to something that just to see if it would work. You know, so I have what you seeing, what this article is talking about now. It's like real time stuff that they use. I've heard people using it to predict what stock to buy. So,
Oh
um,
yeah, they're using it in trade systems. They're definitely using it in trade systems. But the only
so
problem is that as the article is kind of pointing out, man, AI at that level is not cheap. That's like hundreds of thousands of people, engineers, SREs, site reliability engineers, DevOps, traffic engineers, all types of IT people involved in this. Um, so it takes a massive human effort to actually create something like this, because there's so many millions of lines of code that have to be written. Lionel's in the program right now where he's learning the program, and he can tell you that lines of code is not it's not easy. That's stuff that and he's only writing a few lines of code. You imagine you have to write hundreds
Yeah,
of millions of lines of code.
yeah,
well,
that can get dizzying.
they
I
don't
can.
allow one person to write significant amount of the code.
No, they don't. They don't. It's actually it's written in layers. So different people do different things. Different groups do different things to contribute to lines of code. But my point in saying this is that for a massive, highly artificial intelligence system to work, that takes a heaping effort, and there's only so many few people that could actually contribute to a project like this. Um, they're having a hard time now. I think artificial intelligence and blockchain developers are some of the highest paid tech people right now for 2019. If you can do all of that stuff, blockchain or AI or both, you are highly sought out. Those are $200,000 a year jobs.
And DE, the Wall Street trading programs that you're talking about, the first trading programs, they literally came from a joint collaboration between MIT and NASA's JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Hmm.
It literally took rocket scientists and astrophysicists to design the first trading programs. So pretty much even now, whether you're talking the New York Stock Exchange, the Amex, Fidelity Mutual Funds, Vanguard funds, you know, any and all trading programs that they use, they're still pretty much coming from universities, MIT, DARPA, JPL. That's
SoCal,
there is correct. It's
Stanford.
literally nothing off the shelf. And when I say teams, like Mike said, teams, it's not so much that they don't allow one person to write it. It's our current level of technology makes it physically impossible for one person to write that sheer amount of code. It
Hmm.
it takes teams and teams and teams who themselves are using supercomputers.
Hmm. They use clusters, but I don't think they use supercomputers. But they do. I do know that they use clusters. So I wanted to share my screen
Things
real quick.
have advanced there. Cool.
Yeah. So I wanted to use a few websites that we think are reliable. Udacity is a very reliable platform for learning. Get nano degrees and certificates off of it. Um, if we look to the left, right here, you see that they have a nano degree in artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, computer vision, AI programming with Python. Python is a language. similar to C++, natural language processing, and artificial intelligence for trading, just like DE kind of brought up. If we click on it, artificial intelligence, nano degree. Let me see. I hate the way the site is developed. So here's the silly bus. So term one, quantitative trading. Term two, AI algorithms and trading. So there's only two here, but they're 3 months apart. Go into details. Let me scroll back up. Go back. See, this is the one I should have referred to. All right, so the silly bus basically says learn foundational AI algorithms. And then within that, you have your breakdown of the prerequisites, constraint satisfaction problems, search optimization and planning, SEO. So SEO is actually really popular right now because that's how you get your queries in from web crawls. And the rest of them are just additions to the program, to the function of the program. But this is actually a reliable program. I know. Do you have any gripes with Udacity? Any feedback about it?
No, I have no gripes about it. They really walk you through, and having good videos and tutorials and helping you understand the concept. They don't pour too much on you. They also have a what's the word? Where you ask people things. Um, what's the word I'm looking for here? But they have that where you can get questions asked and get your questions answered, and they really help you along the way. They don't say, "Well, do this," and here's the reading material. It's do
Interactivity.
such and such. No, they really help you along the way.
Interactivity, I believe, is the word you're looking for.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I believe they're one step off from like an interacting course. You know, they're that they're that close. You have to go into the forums. The forums is the word I'm looking for. The forums to maybe hook up with people and go that extra step.
Oh, you hook up. What do you mean hook up?
Huh?
You said hook up with people?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. But they're very intuitive. They yeah, I would recommend it to people.
Yeah, here's the other one from EDX. Um, is we could talk about neuroscience. So let me see if I can find it. Yep, this is the fundamentals of neuroscience from Harvard. So you do get yourself a certificate out of it. The cost is $267, less than a pair of your favorite Yeezys or whatever you want to call them, Starberries, um, Louis Vuitton belts and stuff like that. That these guys like to buy out here. And you can try the first course for free. So fundamentals, what you'll learn, fundamentals of bioelectricity, how you can do neuroscience in your home, how neurons communicate with each other, how sensory perception works in the brain, the basic anatomy of functional areas of the brain. And these courses are self-paced as well, so it's not like you can be late for class. You shouldn't be late for class for an online class anyways. 4 to 15 weeks per course, 3 to 5 hours per week is required of effort. 3 courses in total. Accredited University of Harvard. Looks good on your resume. Looks good on your LinkedIn profile. And it coincides with the articles that we talked about tonight in terms of some of the sciences that we've covered, especially artificial intelligence and neuroscience put together. I mean, you're one step away from being from being a very vulnerable person in the not the IT space, but the actual life sciences space.
Yeah, this is all good stuff. This is all good stuff. We're showing you another road to take, and then and to get in on these emerging technologies.
Mm-hmm. Paul Brown, you have anything you want to add?
No, sir. You have definitely covered it thoroughly.
D.
In my opinion, the neuroscience direction is the best one. It will not have such a detrimental effect on the human as the what we are calling artificial intelligence, which is really artificial intelligence, really getting rid of the human body altogether and turning you to a it's like changing the human body into colors, which is the way the sun communicates with the earth. The sun communicates with the earth without having a, a, a cable going from sun to earth. Whereas the human body, the brain communicates through a network of physical, biological connection.
Mm-hmm.
Artificial intelligence. If human being runs up against true artificial intelligence, human can't compete, and so it's going to find itself obsolete. When the artificial intelligence looks at the humans, why do I need you? You are not, of value. So I had to get rid of you. You like a virus on the earth.
You mean racist robots?
Oh yeah. Reality is showing itself right there. It's showing itself. People are looking at it and saying it's black and white, but you better look past that. It's always Caucasians, and they create things, and they don't look past it. They will, if you see it, they will try something on black people without thinking that, hey, somebody's gonna try it on us later.
Well, and that's why black people need to start getting involved in these sort of STEM programs so that they don't get left behind and they're not victims of, you know, um, racist bots running
Oh
around,
yeah.
calling you a nigger or something like that, and you like, no, Nigeria or something like that. He's trying to correct it. Yeah, this next one is from edx.org. Never artificial intelligence program. If you want to be if you're looking for alternative to Udacity, this new Microsoft program, professional program in artificial intelligence, is supposed to be really good. I haven't taken it yet. Microsoft is actually really new to EDX platform, so what you'll learn: use Python to work with data, consider the ethics of AI, build machine learning models, build reinforcement learning models, develop applied AI solutions, operationalize AI solutions. There's nine and a half courses, 10 courses. Introduction to Artificial Intelligence, Introduction to Python for Data Science, Essential Mathematics for Artificial Intelligence, Python edition, Ethics and Law and Data and Analytics, Data Science Research Methods, Principles of Machine Learning, Deep Learning Explained, Reinforcement Learning Explained, Computer Vision and Image Analysis, and Microsoft Professional Capstone Artificial Intelligence. This is actually really good, in my opinion, just based on the course layout and or the syllabus, what it is. And it's not that expensive. It's $990, less than a big flat screen TV and an Xbox that some guys like to sit on the couch of their girlfriends and play games and waste the days away. I'd rather do it sitting on EDX or something like that. That's just me. The effort is 8 to 16 hours a week. Some hangouts on YouTube go for 8 hours. If you can waste your time on there, you should be able to actually do something here.
Mike, you said something that has really stayed with me, and you said that a lot of black people view this as entertainment, and that really stuck with me because I look at the words and actions, and you know, to a lot of people, that's really what this is. It's entertainment. They do not take any of this stuff seriously. So that's why they'll sit on a 25-hour hangout arguing about tail and weaves and who's sleeping with who. But when you see something like the Black Brain Trust, where it's talking about emerging technologies, right, and space and technology startups, agriculture applications and startups, biotechnology, geopolitics, they're not even ready to take it seriously. It's entertainment. They only want to hear, oh, it's black? Okay, fine. Where's the drama? Where's the fuckery? Then when they come and they see, oh, there is no drama, no fuckery, keep on moving. Because now if you talk about tail and fuckery and white bash and name call, you're going to have 1,000 people viewing. But if you talk about anything that's of any seriousness and of any useful benefit, crickets. Nothing but crickets. Okay? People are not taking serious things seriously. So when you know what? Let me stop here because I'm going to really start to go in. So I'll leave it there.
All right. Um, Thank you for that, Mr. Paul. Oh, I just wanted to touch on a couple more things from EDX because it's relevant to what we were talking about tonight. So, this one here is professional certificate program from EDX. Or they're available on EDX, solar energy in hot desert climates. We talked about solar panels in the water as well as in the desert as well. So if I click on this, it's 2-course professional certificate program, solar resource assessment in desert climates, using photovoltaic technology in desert climates. These are accredited institutions. Which college is this? Oh, Hamad bin Khalifa University. This is out in Qatar. So $99 for a course. 7 to 8 weeks for a course. 1 to 2 hours per week of effort needs to be put into it. So, and here's another one here. The Imperial College of London. What a term to use, Imperial. Um, this one is called Clean Power and the courses include why move towards clean power, creating a pro renewables environment, and incorporating renewable energy and electricity grids. They're also placed 5 to 6 weeks per course, 2 to 5 hours per week of effort needs to be put in. What's the other one I was just looking at? I lost my pace, my place right here. Let me look here. No, that's it for tonight. Two major resources, Udacity and EDX. And DE, you have any closing words?
No, well, yes. Everybody's looking at the, well, you were talking about installing, heat conversion is going to lead, when you convert the heat into energy, or energy conversion, it always generates a good and a bad. Nuclear power is good, but it generates something bad. Uh, Even though we need clean energy, um, when you get to a point where you're going to be hurting the environment, no matter what you use. Um, I, I appreciate people getting rid of the hydrogen fuel, but no matter what you use, you're going to affect the environment.
Um, Gentlemen, I have to say good night. I have someone who demands my attention at the moment, so I will speak to you gents later.
All right, have a good one, Paul.
Hey, have a good one, Paul.
Yeah,
Take care, bud.
I have nothing else.
All right, so we'll shut it down, and we'll be back on Monday with Space and Technology. Thank you all for joining us, and have a good weekend.
All right, guys, everybody.